So we are talking all about Avengers Endgame later in the show, but as you know, it's the culmination of about 11 years and 20 or so Marvel movies, which is a lot to get your head around. So to help us with that is friend of the show, Van Connor. Welcome back.
Well, happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. It's a big week. Obviously, we're talking about nothing else but Avengers. And I've got you on to give us a bit of a rundown and tell us about your favourite Marvel movies to date.
Yeah, there's no shortage of really great ones, to be honest. Out of 22 films, I'd say there are at least 10 solid belters among the collection. I mean, it's. I'll be honest with you. You asked me to narrow it down to 5. It was a tough job. I'm not gonna lie.
As far as franchises go, it's right up there. It's a good one.
I would argue at this stage that the MCU has proven a better track record than Pixar has, and I didn't even think that was possible.
I would agree with that, actually. I think Pixar are a little bit hit and miss, which I think comes with the territory because they're a little bit more experimental. They're all about sort of pushing the art of animation, whereas Marvel were just trying to make some great superhero films, and they succeed every time.
And what a noble quest it is.
Okay, so without further ado, before your top 5, you said there's loads to choose from. So what didn't make the cut?
For me personally, what didn't make my top 5? So I am going to go with our current film, which is Endgame. I'm going to put that in as one film with Infinity War because I don't, because obviously you can't see Endgame without having seen the previous 20 plus movies. It's so integral that you've seen those movies. But I mean, it's not like Fast and Furious where you can argue that they should still be making these for newcomers. These are, once you pass 20 films, I think it's a case of get on board or don't. But Infinity War and Endgame, they're honourable mentions for me. Captain America: Civil War, I think that's definitely one that deserves an honourable mention. And both Guardians of the Galaxy movies, which I think are tremendous. And the fact that you've got movies that good that are just honourable mentions tells you how strong some of the Marvel movies can be.
I am surprised. If it was down to me, Guardians would be right up there.
Which one, the first or the second, out of interest?
The first one for me was such a pleasant surprise and a sort of a bit of a sidestep in terms of tone for the Marvel universe. That was a better film for me.
You think, like, for me personally, I mean, I came out of the first Guardians of the Galaxy in 2014, and I remember I sent my uncle a text message, lifelong Star Wars fan. I think I told him they did it. They finally made their Star Wars. And as great as I think Guardians of the Galaxy is, I think the sequel is even better. The sequel just reduced me to emotional rubble. And it proved for me once and for all that James Gunn genuinely is one of the best filmmakers out there, because he managed to craft a film so tightly, intricately constructed that they even managed to chuck in a scene of Kurt Russell and Chris Pratt literally playing catch, and that managed to be an emotionally cathartic moment without all the cheese that you would expect that comes with that.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask you, are you team James Gunn or not? But I think you've answered my question.
Oh, I'm very team James Gunn. I was very much on board the #rehire James Gunn thing. I've been a fan of his for decades.
Yeah, it seemed a bit unfair at Disney. It was a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. So you need Gunn on board really to carry on that whole stylistic.
It's ended well, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. So yeah, actually, what's the release date now for Guardians 3? Do you know?
Guardians of the Galaxy 3 officially does not have a release date, nor a production start, nor, I believe, is actually officially greenlit at this stage.
Interesting.
The project was put into turnaround, I believe, is the official things after the whole James Gunn getting sacked thing. Now he's back. He's on board as director for a film that's not officially a go yet, but we are going to have the equivalent of a Marvel keynote address in the next sort of 2 months, so we shall see what comes.
Yeah, they tend to announce a lot of their release dates in bulk, don't they, for like the next phase? So I'm sure that'll be in there.
Yeah, we got that. I think was it like 2013, 2014? I think we got the keynote address for what was going to happen, and obviously certain things changed and certain things didn't. Like we got a Spider-Man and we lost some Inhumans. That's just kind of how it went.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I feel like we're on a bit of a tangent, so let's dive into your top 5. Go for it. Number 5.
Number 5 for me, Thor Ragnarok.
Interesting choice. Why is that?
This is Marvel's Flash Gordon. It is Gladiator in space. It is, as Taika Waititi pitched it, a cosmic road trip. And I had so much fun with Thor Ragnarok. It was a level of just out there weirdness and bewildering enjoyment that I didn't think I personally would get from a Thor movie. I think giving Thor a his own little mini team and actually running with it for a change turned out to be absolutely for the best. I thought Mark Ruffalo owned the Hulk in a way that no actor has ever been given the opportunity to do. And also, it had Taika Waititi and Jeff Goldblum in it, and they're both terrific.
Yeah, fair point. Do you know what I think? I think Mark Ruffalo adds immediate value to any Marvel film, and it's a real injustice that he hasn't had his own Hulk film yet.
Well, I mean, we know that is for legal reasons, and that is down to sort of contract law. But we shall see. I mean, it's in the same way that Universal own Namor, but we may yet see Namor in a certain sequel that's coming out. Number 4 for me, the very, very first Avengers back in 2012. This is a movie that absolutely blew me away the first time I saw it.
Yeah, do you know what? I think the Avengers was that turning point in the MCU where you kind of thought, okay, they've made a lot of great films in isolation, but this is big. Like, this is the moment that everything starts coming together. That it was
absolutely
a big deal.
For me. It's absolutely the same.
Yeah.
No, I look at that first Avengers, and I remember, on the day going to, I went to some premiere screening or something of it before. It was like 2 weeks before it was out, and it was at that point actually that Marvel had just sort of been bought by Disney, and Paramount weren't distributing them. So it was the very first time I think that Paramount hadn't distributed the Marvel film, even though their logo is kind of on it.
Yeah.
And I remember going along to it and coming out of it just being completely jazzed, thinking, wow, this grand experiment of theirs, this actually worked.
Yeah.
Nobody thought it would. And it actually stuck the landing.
Absolutely. And I think it was really the first time that a franchise had tried to do such a huge, like, ensemble film, and it just worked. Like, I don't know how they pulled it together, but they kind of set the template.
They did. There are certain plot holes within it when you look back, but I can, without spoiling anything for you, I can tell you that they are aware of that and address it.
Interesting. Very interesting. There are some fan theories going out there, which I think I know what you might be alluding to. But yeah, we won't spoil anything.
No spoilers. Do not, under any circumstances, spoil Endgame. I will tell you, incidentally, that the marketing campaign for Endgame is just damn near genius, and they've said it only covers the first 45 minutes. That's a lie. It only covers the first 15 minutes of the film.
Wow.
So yeah, you're in for a treatment.
You're giving me goosebumps already. And obviously, by the time this goes out on air, I've seen the film, so I'll know if those goosebumps are justified.
I think I'd be surprised if they're not justified. I'd be very, very surprised if you don't just fall in love with this thing.
Yeah, the bar is high now. Actually, quick side note, as you mentioned Avengers is your number 4. Do you think that without the Disney Marvel purchase, the universe would have gone in the direction it's gone in the way it has?
Not even for a second. No.
Glad we can agree on that.
I think they needed that push. They needed that behind the scenes support that obviously Kevin Feige has historically gotten from the higher ups of Disney. And there's been certain behind the scenes dealings over the last few years, like having to separate Marvel Studios from Marvel Entertainment, for instance, and losing the TV division as a result of that, and having Marvel shows out there that seem to be set in the movies, but they're not actually officially connected, and the crossover element only works one way. There's been stuff like that you do sit there and think, it's Disney have provided all this support to Kevin Feige. They upped his budgets. They stopped curtailing any of his wild ideas. And yeah, that seems to be how it goes, because Marvel themselves, left to their own devices, they were too fractured. They were too splintered as an organization to work. And it did come down to that power struggle between Kevin Feige and Ike Perlmutter, who runs Marvel Entertainment, the sort of shut-in, reclusive figure who has some very wild ideas about what does and doesn't, make for a strong brand. Like, for instance, no female action figures. And it's only Disney that have allowed Kevin Feige to really run with it.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I mean, I guess we've got your top 3 in a couple of minutes, but for the sake of building suspense, I'm going to play a song. What we do know is that Avengers, Infinity War, Endgame, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Ragnarok are not in your top 3. So I look forward to what is. Okay, you are listening to the film show on Hospital Radio Medway. As you know, we are talking all about Endgame, and we are in the middle of Van Connor's top 5 Marvel films. Thanks again for joining us on the show.
Always a treat, as you know.
Yep. So, obviously, number 4 was Avengers, the first one. Number 5 was Thor Ragnarok. We know it's not Guardians. We know it's not the other Avengers films. apart from maybe Age of Ultron. So have I spoiled something? What is your number 3?
I can genuinely tell you, Age of Ultron is not even in my top 15 Marvel
Okay, that's
movies.
good. That's good to know.
I'm very much on the side of Age of Ultron is terrible, but and I say that given I got to meet Joss Whedon when that movie came out. I worship Joss Whedon, and I had to meet him for his worst movie. Go figure. But I can tell you, my number 3 is one of my favorite movies ever, like of all time. My personal, one of my absolute top 10 of ever movies, and it's 2008's franchise launching Iron Man.
Great choice. Great choice.
It is. It's a movie that just it gets better with age. It gets weirder with age when you look back at it, and I think it's got a quality that none of the other Marvel movies have. I think it's unique entirely to Iron Man, and I think, to be honest, that's because there is no weight of expectation, obviously, on it. Not to most people, obviously. To me personally, growing up, it was going to be the biggest movie ever, regardless. But it's made as an independent film. I mean, it was literally made as an independent film. It was made on a bank loan that Marvel took out to start their own studio, and was made entirely without a script. The function of the film, the way it worked, as we were told by Jeff Bridges, was they showed up to set one day, they were given a sheet that just had some plot points on it, and told, right, improv what you like, just work those in. And what you got is this auteurist work of brilliance. It looks like a Robert Altman movie. And Jon Favreau himself has come out and said that that was his intention. He wanted to make Robert Altman does Superman. And I think that absolutely works. It's an absolutely hilarious movie. I mean, just him testing out the Iron Man suit in his garage is some of the funniest stuff in a film that year. And that was a year in which Robert Downey Jr. did get an Oscar nomination for playing a black man. So it was a very strange year for comedies in films.
Yeah, and there are two things particularly that I love about Iron Man. The first is what you've just said, like Marvel being the first film in what's, the new Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think that it has that kind of raw quality about it. It's so unpolished compared to all of the later films that have come. And I think, secondly, what I love is that of all of the Marvel superheroes, they launched their universe with Iron Man, like who at the time wasn't really one of the core heroes, as far as he might have had a good fan base among comic book fans, but wider global audiences who would have gone to see the film really didn't give a hoot about Iron Man.
Oh God, no! I mean, the key to Iron Man was always in that casting, and I mean, to give you a rough idea of the way the world worked, but way back in like 2005, 2006, when they started developing Iron Man, I was an Iron Man fan, and like back from being a kid, my ideal choice for someone playing Tony Stark at that stage was Matt Dillon, because You, Me, and Dupree had just come out. So very, very different time. When they actually announced it was going to be Robert Downey Jr., who was essentially persona non grata in the industry at that stage, my immediate response was, holy God, that is awesome, pour me a drink.
But it just, he shaped the everything that came after that for the next 10 years. The way he brought Iron Man to life, I think it didn't just add that tone to the character and the brand of Iron Man, but it really set the path for the whole Marvel universe in terms of just how the films came across.
Oh, yeah, very much in the tone. It's a tone setter, definitely. And I think Robert Downey Jr., because of the improv he brings to it, that does set a very distinct tone that I will argue that Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor kind of pull off, I think, the most successfully. Spider-Man actually as well did a good stab at it. But there is a very distinct, very unique, quirky indie comedy tone that has been infused into this universe, and it all stems from that one movie.
So what is number 2?
Number 2, it's Lion King with humans. For me, it is Black Panther.
Yeah, it had to be up there.
It really does. It's got some ropey CGI, particularly in the South Korea car chase and the Busan car chase and the fight at the end with the monorail. Very ropey CGI, but it's a very strong film. This is a film that has such a distinct vision to it, such a precise cast, such a brilliant level of casting, great performances, terrific writing. There's some dialogue in there that will absolutely set your heart on fire, like the line, "It's better than death was better than bondage," things like that. And also, probably the best villain any of these movies have had.
Yeah, Michael B. Jordan is an incredibly underrated actor in terms of what he brings to the screen. He just dominates the scene when he's in it, and you can say that about Creed. I would argue you could even say that about Fantastic Four, as terrible as that film was. And again, in Black Panther, he was phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely. Killmonger's an absolutely terrific villain. But I do think that, again, the key to all of these Marvel heroes is always in that title casting.
Yeah.
And Chadwick Boseman proved to be absolutely... I mean, I couldn't think for the life of me who I would have gotten. Sight unseen, like prior to Civil War, who you would have cast to play T'Challa. I didn't have a clue who you'd get. I wouldn't have been surprised had the casting gone the other way around and Michael B. Jordan had been the Black Panther, because it would have been intriguing casting, and I have no doubt that he would have pulled that off. But Chadwick Boseman, who I think when it was revealed that he was going to be T'Challa, had at that stage, I think, just released Get On Up, the James Brown biopic.
Yep.
And I thought he was absolutely fantastic in that. It was such a fun movie, and he absolutely nailed the character as well. I thought there's no way if he brings anywhere near that energy to the Black Panther, we're in good hands.
Yeah, definitely. And Black Panther as well, I think, came just at the right time for Marvel. So, like, the studio were playing around with more diversity in their films anyway, but I don't think it really hurt them that they came right off the back of the Oscars So White movement and this massive industry-wide push for better diversity and better representation of people of colour in film. And then Black Panther comes along, which not only does that, but it's a phenomenal film as well.
And also, as well, it continues a trend that they are still working to this day, which is let's take the up-and-coming filmmakers who are not going to get studio movies otherwise. They may well never see studio movies, and not everyone gets to be Colin Trevorrow, although that might be a misnomer anyway. In this case, obviously, the director of Fruitvale Station. Let's give the director of Fruitvale Station a superhero movie. What could possibly go wrong? And what you get out of it is a damn masterpiece.
Yeah, exactly. And what I think Marvel have done, and Black Panther kind of is the pinnacle of that, is they've got the stigma out of superhero movies, and all of a sudden the genre has credibility again. Not just credibility, but it can compete for Oscars. And who would have said that like 10, 15 years ago, that superhero films would be a viable Best Picture contender?
Actually, I'm just going to hold my hand up and say I did tell everyone for 20 years. I told absolutely everyone who would listen. I don't speak with too much of an accent. Nobody listened.
Fair enough. Credit is all yours. So that brings us to your number one Marvel film. Please do us the honours.
Right. This may be a controversial choice. This one is up for debate. I have heard a fair few people share this, though. So I know it's not unheard of that people can consider this the best Marvel movie. For me personally, it's the one. It's the romping, riotous action thriller that is Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Fair enough. Okay, so first of all, why The Winter Soldier as opposed to Captain America or Civil War?
Because I don't think there's a wasted minute in Winter Soldier, but I do think Civil War at times can be a little bit baggy in its let's just say in its use of structure. I think Civil War can just be a little bit flimsy. I mean, its big action scene is in the middle of the movie. It does add another action scene to the end, but there's moments where it flounders while it's trying to get the character stuff right. Civil War is a movie that could literally be undone with a phone call.
Yeah, and I also kind of feel like Civil War is an Avengers movie in everything but title.
I mean, Civil War is absolutely, that's the Age of Ultron we should have had. But again, you need Age of Ultron to get to Civil War, so there is that argument. But Winter Soldier, despite the fact that it has flaws, despite the fact that its title character is barely in the thing, is a terrific movie. It's the movie I will argue led us to this stage where superhero movies can be considered for Oscars, because it got credibility from the most unlikeliest of places, which is, let's just go and get the guy that runs Sundance to play the villain.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I forgot all about that, actually. And I think what's easy to forget as well about Winter Soldier is that everything that's come since has been so well received that we sort of forget Winter Soldier did pose a bit of a turning point in critical reception of Marvel films. There was this kind of sense that actually it was really good, not just as an action film, but as a whole package. And I feel like that reception has been lost a little bit.
I don't know. I mean, particularly amongst the mainstream critics, I tend to find their reactions to these things are generally quite positive and generally quite well receptive. There's always initial snootiness, and then when they're made to watch the film, they kind of relent on it, and that's fine. That's par for the course. But I do remember the response to Winter Soldier being the first time that they sort of took it seriously as a grown-up film, even though it's still a comic book character. It's still aimed at 15-year-old boys. But, we're all 15-year-old boys at heart, deep down, so it works. And also, it was the idea that you could take a stripped-down, grounded thriller and then apply it to a big, larger-than-life, technicolor teleplay and have helicarriers falling down on DC and make it plausible this is happening in a real world, but at the same time, we've just had aliens invading New York with a skybeam. Yeah. It's that balance that you wouldn't expect to work, but also... Civil War. Winter Soldier, the very opening action beat of it, is the first time I'd ever gotten to grips with the idea of Captain America as a superhero rather than just a hero. Because Avengers, as good as it is, doesn't really ever show you what Cap's there for, other than just to lead them. What are his abilities? What can he do? What did that serum actually give him in the way of powers? And it's only when you see him, stealth incursion on a boat at night, that you finally see for the very first time why this character is the soldier, why this character is, the de facto leader, because he got the brain and the brawns to match. And when you see those brawns finally unleashed, that's the movie right there.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I also think to kind of combat that and play devil's advocate, I do think that the slower parts of all of these films where you don't necessarily see their superpowers in play is kind of what makes Marvel films so brilliant, in that they haven't shied away from giving screen time to characterization and to exposition and to really building the layers behind all the action. And I think that's why we all have invested for so long.
I absolutely agree with you, and I say that as one of the people who genuinely loves Iron Man 3, which largely that is kind of the function of Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3 is literally a movie about PTSD. Yeah. And one of my favorite things about it is that it is really the talky Marvel movie. And I think that they do this stuff with character. I mean, this you're going to see stuff done with characters this weekend that's going to blow you away entirely, but in terms of that tectonic layering of certain nuanced elements to a character, Endgame does rank alongside Iron Man 3 and then some for just quite what you see of a superhero.
Well, okay, so before I let you go, buy, borrow or bin, what are you rating Avengers Endgame?
Oh, buy. I mean, if I could pre-order it right this second, I would. I've seen the movie, I think, 3 times already. So
unbelievable. It's only been out for a couple of days.
Yeah, I have to squeeze these things in.
Well, it's been a pleasure as always, Van. Thank you for doing that, and no doubt we will catch up soon.